You have to actually care about your morals and values. You have to know where to spend your time. You have to know how to be focused. All the things you think that wouldn't matter, that are all personal to you, those absolutely
Welcome to
matter.
Motion Matters, where we shine a light on the entrepreneurial journey, sharing real stories of triumph and challenge. Guided by Jamie Tilka, we connect, inspire, and educate. This is Motion Matters.
Hello and welcome to Motion Matters. This is the Entrepreneurial podcast where we talk about the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship. And today I have Bobby Oliver with me, and we met at a mutual mastermind that we attended in Arizona and talked about different aspects of her business. And then recently just connected again and talked and said, you should totally be on the show. Let's talk about everything you're doing. So hello, Bobby, and welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. I have to tell you, I didn't even know that you had a podcast until a few weeks ago. You were interviewing someone else, and I had already reached out saying, hey, we got to catch up. So when I saw that you had the podcast, I was like, oh my God, I have to get on that, because any conversation I have with you is always top quality. You always just have the best conversations and just the best advice to give. So I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. And yes, I will absolutely send you a Christmas card for that. So thank you.
Get a Christmas card. Thank you.
Yeah. So awesome. I also mutually enjoy our conversations. And so I would love to open it up with an opportunity for you to kind of tell everybody who you are, where you came from, and what got you into entrepreneurship versus taking the standard road of W-2.
Well, I've walked both roads. We'll put it that way, okay? It's been a lot of back and forth, but I want to say, I've always enjoyed working, and I've always had problems with listening to other people. If I had to put it down to those two things, I would. Entrepreneurship, it wasn't something that I think I grew up really understanding, because I grew up in a very poor mindset family and town and area. And so even the word entrepreneurship, I don't think I heard it until I was in high school or maybe even college. It's
Same.
A very different world, really.
100%.
Yeah, it's very different, isn't it? Because you like, it's so confusing. What is entrepreneurship? It's such a broad term.
Yeah.
And so when I finally learned what it was, I had friends who went to college for entrepreneurship, and they were like, yeah, they teach you how to work hard. They teach you how to build a business. And I remember thinking like, well, I built 2 businesses in high school. You go to college for this? No offense. That's great that's a major, but I was always so confused that people thought that entrepreneurship was like a career path. I really do think the best entrepreneurs are those people who maybe didn't have any other options, and they knew that they struggled with authority, and they were so determined to get what they wanted in life, whether that was in business or personal goals. They were so driven. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs grow from. That's where they're born, is that ultra determination of, if I want something, I'm going to get it, and I won't stop until I do. And I want to say that was me a little bit. I think primarily I was like so bothered by how I grew up. And it's fine, everyone has their different scenarios that they're comfortable with. But I remember, I'm adopted, number one, but I remember looking at my adopted parents and just thinking, man, like, if you really want something, go get it, like go make more money, go be more successful, go start talking positively. And I don't know if it's because I'm adopted that we had a different mindset, but it was very different. And I knew from the beginning, from just being a small kid, that I wanted something more than what was being handed to me. And so I asked for a new deck of cards and ran with it. And it's been amazing so far. I think entrepreneurship it's scary, and I have bounced back and forth a little bit. I did go to college. I went to school for economics and business, started a business, and then sold that one. It was around COVID, so I got a W-2 and kind of stayed in that world. Hated it so much. So much. It was so unsatisfying. And so then I thought, I can't do this anymore. Like this is detrimental to me to stay in a W-2. This kills me on the inside. I'll go start another business. And so 3 businesses later,
Wow.
here we are.
Wow. That's amazing. I have tons of questions, but I first want to just say, even though we've spoken, on multiple occasions during some of the mastermind meetups, I didn't realize how much my story appears to resonate with yours, other than the fact that I was not adopted, but everything else that you said verbatim, I mean, just
Really?
spot on. I was going to give you a big fat amen, but I didn't want to interrupt you when you're in your flow.
Give me the amen.
Yeah.
Let's go. I got to hear more about these similarities.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't want to take too much time because I really want to afford you the opportunity, because that's one of the things I love about this platform. In fact, I was going to say this at the end when I was listening to you, but I'm just going to say it right now, which is I repeatedly keep saying one of the things I love about starting this podcast and doing this podcast is even people that I've known for a while, you just learn so much when you have a truly engaged one-on-one conversation for 30 to 45 minutes. So that being said,
absolutely.
Thanks for that intro. That's amazing. So I want to go back to, the assumption is based on what you said. So then you graduated high school. Yeah. Did you have a W-2 job during that time?
Yes. So I had both, actually, now that I think about it. So, being adopted, it's not like a normal family setup. And I would say that there was always kind of just a lot of chaos in our family. And it was I'm not close to my adopted parents. And so I remember being, ages 15 through 17, I was pretty much doing everything to like spend time away from home. I know that sounds bad. And I don't think I realized that's what it was until you said that, actually. But I was going to school full time. I graduated like a semester early. I had a W-2 job as a cashier. That was like my first real W-2 job. I was cleaning offices at my adopted dad's company that he worked at. And then I also had a photography business. And I was doing all of that at the same time, just like raking in the cash,
wow,
doing homework on the side. And then went to college right after I turned 18. And then was in there for 2 years and then dropped out because I learned I did not want to be in economics for the rest of my life and make $100K a year at best.
Did you have a side hustle during college?
Did I? I had a TA job primarily. So I was working for my economics professor as a TA.
Okay. So you talked about the photography business. How did that get started?
I've always loved photography, and we didn't have smartphones as kids. I was still in that kind of era.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I just always really liked photography. And so I had saved up a bunch of money, got a camera, and then we had just moved to the middle of nowhere in North Dakota when I turned 15. So I had no friends, and was I'm kind of depressed. I don't love this. What if I just started making money? And we lived quite a ways out of town. I want to say 30 or 45 minutes. And so it was I gotta make money, but I can't just drive somewhere, I'm 15. It's too far of a drive. What if I just started a photography business? So I got an expensive, a $400 camera, I think. And then I just started learning Photoshop and Build Lightroom and all the Adobe features. And then just people in town and our church kind of started hearing about it. So I started doing senior pictures, family pictures. And over the next year, I was booked out constantly. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Was there a reason why you didn't continue that? Was it a change of interest, or was it just, what changed those circumstances?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think as soon as social media became very prominent, where everyone was posting pictures all the time, and then the smartphones got released, having family pictures or even senior pictures, it wasn't as popular as it used to be, say in 2010. 2013.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as 2015, 16 hit, when I started going to college, number one, I didn't have time for it anymore. Number two, pretty much everything I could do on my camera, it wasn't appreciated as much because, number one, most people don't appreciate quality. They're not going to pay someone for something that they could do themselves on a phone, even if the quality is a little bit less. And so, and additionally, it was like the market was so saturated with other photographers, especially in my college town, that I thought I could make better money elsewhere. You know, I still love photography, but I had put it on the side. And I mean, it's great. It's not very scalable. And I think I knew that. It wasn't something I could build an empire off of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm sure I would still do photography as a hobby, but it was really just a pastime that made me some money.
Okay. No, that's good. But that was like your really first entrepreneurial endeavor, yeah?
I mean, I had a chicken egg business when I was like 8 years old that did really well.
That's good. That's
And
good.
then I was actually really good. You would not think that an 8-year-old would know how to do books, but I did books. I had my expenses, I had my income statements, I had a list of my clients, I had everything. Looking back, I'm like, damn, I was organized.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. I know you touched on it, but connecting it to the chicken story at 8 years old, was that just sheer intuition and interest, or was it mentorship from someone?
No, it wasn't really mentorship. You know, as much as I don't get along with my adopted parents, they were actually really good to me, especially in the early stages. We had like a few acres of land. I grew up in Idaho. Everyone has land. We had land. So we had some cows, we had horses, pigs, and I did like the 4-H and FFA programs as well. But we had like a chicken coop, and I just want to say it was something as simple as my adopted mom saw that there was like a sale on baby chicks and said, hey, if you want to do this, like you have to take care of them, but maybe you could like sell the eggs. And then I took that idea and ran with it, went and picked up the baby chicks, researched what kind of food they needed, started calling people like in our phone book in our local directory, asking like, this is Bobby. I'm selling like fresh eggs for $2 a dozen. I'll drop them off to you.
Wow.
And made a whole business out of it. Oh, it was so much fun. It was so great.
Yeah.
But I'd say that was like my first actual business. And then I was like, this is so much better than like being lazy and going to the mall on Saturday like everyone else. Like I like making money.
Yeah.
And I like feeling proud of this accomplishment. Let's keep it going.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's awesome that you had that introduced at such a young age, because I don't think that's typical for most people, right? So that's really interesting.
Sure.
You touched on something earlier. You just talked about, I'm trying to remember exactly how you kind of worded it, but you said something along the lines of the fact that you felt like your upbringing, right, kind of potentially, was something that shaped, kind of like how you were looking at entrepreneurship. Or I think you said something along the lines of like, I didn't feel like, I could, or that it was good enough, right?
Yeah.
Be a little bit more clear, because I'm kind of dashing all around the place. It's very interesting that you bring that up, because I kind of had this revelation moment in the past week really around this topic that you're talking. So I'm very interested to hear if you have any more insight into like how you think that shaped or affected you, or if you're still dealing with stuff like that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I have to hear more about this revelation that you've had, but to add more context to my experience with it, was entrepreneurship was almost frowned upon where I grew up at. Picture a very small farm town, 1,400 people. Everyone knows everyone. And the person who's bringing in all of the wealth, all of the jobs, all of the housing, everyone hates them. And we had a family like that. And their last name is Mosscrips, Scott and Carmen Mosscrip. I absolutely loved those people. And I remember being a kid and like overhearing conversations of how they had all these businesses and how they owned every street on Main Street. And I just remember thinking, that's so cool. Like, why does everybody hate them? And then I realized as I got older, it was just a mindset. People were jealous and they didn't think that they could get ahead. They didn't think that they could be successful too. They believed that wealth was very limited. And so as I got older, I started spending more time with the Mosscrips. I started working on their farm with them. I started spending time with them. And I just realized these are really good people. And they are genuinely helping everybody in this town. And they've since, I think, moved and they've expanded their businesses. Very, very wealthy, very successful, and you would never know it. They're incredibly humble and just the nicest people. But I would say that they were probably one of the cornerstones of me actually being introduced to entrepreneurship and being willing to let go of that mindset that just clouded the entire town, and that false idea that entrepreneurship and being a business owner was bad. So I started leaning into the good. And then as soon as I left that town, I was just amazed that entrepreneurship was a lovely thing and that there were good people who still had money. And it did take a while because that's not how I was raised. And that's a big reason, I think, why me and a lot of those people from where I'm from don't get along. We're not really interacting anymore. And at some point, I just had to stop caring because deep down, it's like I love entrepreneurship. I love what I do. And they can continue to be in their mindset. I'll continue to be in mine. I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I hope that they're happy too. Does that kind of answer the question? Okay.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, mine I think was a little bit of a different perspective, but I'm gonna save that for a little bit later because again, I don't want to go off on too many tangents on myself. I really want to focus on hearing your journey.
No, not at all. Are you kidding me?
Well, okay, so
no, I absolutely here for like the conversation, 100%, my friend.
I think I'm also going to package it because it was such a transformational moment for me. I'm just going to kind of leave that teaser there, if you will, because I actually posted on social media and I said it was the most transformational 48 hours of my life. And I think there's some shit that I was holding on to for a long time. And I think I don't think I understood that it had an impact on me to the extent that it did and why I am who I am and what I'm doing and stuff like that. But anyway,
wow.
Yeah, no, it was really...
This gets me so excited. I love this for you. I cannot wait to hear all about it.
Yeah, thank you. Let's come back up though. So you graduated from high school. You did the chickens at 8. You did the photography thing towards... that was during the college, right? Yeah. College and just after.
Yep. High school and college.
And so from there, what was the next venture? Where did that take you?
So the next business was a car detailing and restoration company. Absolutely loved it. Like if you love those satisfying videos that are really, really popular on, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, that's what I got to do like every single day. And I built it with my now ex-husband. It was originally his business. And then when we got married, I joined it together with him. And we built this actually really cool company. Like looking back, I'd say it was one of the most transformative and one of the most impactful businesses and experiences I've had. We had employees. We had to be an actual company rather than being a sole proprietor or a solopreneur sort of venture. And so we actually built a really good business out of it. And then when we got divorced, I ended up selling my portion of that company. But it was probably the first business where I had mentors, where I had to really be responsible, not just for myself, but for my team as well. Because at the time, I think we had about 3 or 4 employees. I think it was 4. And it was really successful. I think we really did the best that we could, even though looking back, I know I was a horrible leader. And I almost cringe at how bad of a leadership style I had. But we're always learning and we're always growing. And I think I wouldn't change anything about it. I definitely learned a lot. So that was the next one. And that's when I dropped out of college, started that, and then left that company. Let's see. I went into it in 2017 and then left it in 2020.
Oh.
And then I went back to W-2.
And what was the W-2?
W-2 was an accounting job. $18 an hour, which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, that is crazy. So in 2020, when Corona's kicking off full steam, we're in a pandemic, you're doing accounting. How long did that last?
So I was there for about a year, and that was still up in Idaho. During my marriage, I had actually started driving for dollars. Had no idea that that's what I was doing, but we were looking for a house that we were trying to move into. We found a really rundown house, had trash all over it. You could tell it was vacant. I ended up calling 7 people to get the owner's info. Long story short, this guy lives in Texas. He sells us this like little single family brick house. We lived in it. And then when I got divorced, we split the profits for both the business and the house. And I ended up staying in the house, and then I sold it right after I left my accounting job, because I knew that Idaho, again, that small mindset, it was getting to me. I was not getting anywhere with it. There was really no good business opportunities where I was at. And so sold the house, and then I moved down to Denver. So I was at that accounting job for, about a year, sold the house, made enough money to make the move, and then started like really going hard in the real estate business.
That's awesome.
It's a wild ride. Like, even telling that, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I think I could do that? But I didn't. Like, it worked out.
I'm listening to your story, and I'm with the pieces that you've given me thus far. Is it fair to say that maybe the reason why you did that was because you were working with what you had, right? My guess is you guys weren't sitting on a ton of cash, because you were still relatively young, newly married, figuring shit out, right? So most people aren't like just sitting on 100 G's and they're like, oh, I'll just go. You know what I mean?
We had absolutely nothing.
So there you go.
So we were putting everything back into the business.
Right.
So we've always made sure our employees were paid. We always made sure our debt was paid off. But at the end of the day, I think we were bringing home like $24 an hour net for both of us. Like, we were hardly living on anything. Our mortgage was like $800 a month. Like, when you picture broke, I'm talking broke.
Yeah.
So incredibly broke.
Yeah. So I would say that that's probably a huge reason why you were driving for dollars without knowing that you were driving for dollars.
Probably. I probably didn't realize that it was the survival instincts kicking in.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just not the type of person to be complacent. If I think there's something better out there, I will go looking for it. And if I'm really determined to get it, I will. That's a double-edged sword, right? It can be good and bad. And I think for the most part, it's been good. Sometimes I do get myself into trouble with seeking ventures that probably I shouldn't be getting into. And so I think you do have to learn the appropriate boundaries of knowing when to take action on something that you're excited about, and then knowing when to leave it alone and just stay with where you're at. So it's worked out. It's definitely been a long learning process.
Well, it sounds like that led you to some experience and skills that then brought you down to Colorado so that you further went into real estate, correct?
I did, yes. I've always loved Colorado. It's very similar to Idaho, but the idea was that Denver was significantly bigger by about 2 million people.
Yeah.
And I figured there would be better opportunities here. The market was booming a lot. It was a beautiful area. And so I moved down here, started networking with a few people who actually introduced me to Tim Brotz. And that's how I got started with him. Like, it's so interesting to see how the chain of events have occurred over time and just exactly where it's led me. But again, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. So what portion of what you're doing right now is the real estate side? Can you talk about that a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you and I were talking back in October, I was only a few months into the land investing. So primarily in real estate right now, I invest in undeveloped land. So I either flip it or I do the entitlement process and sell it that way. I also have a townhome development that I'm working on right now. So it's really a good mix of all these different kinds of developments. It's really just working with the city to determine what they need most right now so that we can make the best profit, so that we can help even more people. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, again, organizational skills, which I don't think I'm great at, but it's good enough to make it happen. And then on the, I would say, even deeper development side of that, it's all about building a team recently, getting the right people in the right seats, being the right person to lead them, and just trying to be more proactive than reactive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's super cool that you're into the land stuff. I've looked and read a little bit about that as well. So that's interesting that you're doing that. And I'm assuming that you get the raw land, and then sometimes you don't even develop it. Do you flip it and turn it, like, without developing it?
Yeah, so I would say it's a pretty healthy mix of everything. Primarily what I run into is, especially in the current market, a lot of sellers are so stressed about the economy and about the upcoming election.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what properties you're going to sell first. You're not going to sell your primary home, get equity out of that. You're going to sell your secondary properties, which is typically going to be your vacation homes, and it's going to be your vacant land that you never built on. So I'm running into a lot of that where I have distressed sellers who come to me and say, hey, my realtor's trying to charge me a 6% fee, plus all these closing costs. And I don't even know what I can get for it. Can you help me? So I've been able to acquire so many different types of land, people who just have empty fields that they need to get sold. I have one property that already has house plans, that has a well, septic, and electric. They just had to move out of town, and so now they're moving. I have another property where someone got sick in the family, and so they had to quickly move out of town, and they're just trying to get rid of the land. So I'd say it's more about, it's not so much about, just finding a piece of land and flipping it and making money. It's more about adapting to those different seller situations, which a lot of people don't do. And then they wonder why their company is so hated by everybody. But it's been really, really fun and so profitable to build these relationships with these sellers and with the buyers who need the property, and then making a bunch of money and then actually being able to sleep at night, knowing that a lot of people got helped in the process.
Here's my question. So I know that we met inside that group. Prior to that, did you have any type of mentorship, and like how much value, or how much value has it brought to you by now bringing in a community of like-minded individuals?
Oh, it's so important. First off, one-on-one mentors are life-changing if you let them be. Number two, having that community is also life-changing if you utilize everyone in that group. Prior to Tim Brotz's group, let me think about this. I had one, it wasn't a really mentorship. It was more of just a group that claimed to be a mentorship, and they flipped houses. And I had joined that prior to Tim Brotz's group. And then before that, I had a really good group I was in. Josh Latimer, he does like a lot of service businesses. Brandon Baum is one of his partners. And so Chris Phillips was actually my main mentor when I had the car detailing business. And he was probably my first real mentor who helped me with like the personal development, but also just the business strategies. And that was when did I start working with him? I think I started working with him in 2018. And then I mean, we're still close to this day. I mean, I haven't talked to him in a while, but we worked together for a couple of years. He helped me even through my divorce. He was really just incredible when it came to all of that. And so he was my first mentor, and he set the bar very high for me knowing what to expect with mentorships. And then most recently, I started working with David Meltzer one-on-one. He is absolutely incredible. And I want to say I started working with him back in, it's been almost a year now that I've been working with him.
Yeah, I mean, Tim's group was the first mastermind that I had ever joined.
Oh, wow.
I did one of his single pop-up ones first, before I actually joined the group.
Okay.
And it was just, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is, because it was literally just 2 days, super hyper focused on a very small group of people. Like, what's your problems? How can we help you solve it? Let's make connections, let's brainstorm, let's strategize. And so just, that was my first like awakening, if you will, on the power of mentorship and being in and around the right people.
Oh, that's so cool. That was your first experience with them. I love that.
Yeah. So that's why I just like to hear people's perspectives and share it, because, for anybody that's listening to the show, that's listening to your story and is, questioning, is mentorship important or whatnot, particularly when there's a price tag attached to it. I think it's hard in the beginning for a lot of people to get their head around that, because they're like, that's crazy. Why would I pay somebody like that? But it's just really understanding that you're collapsing your time sector, you're gaining proximity, and you're potentially going to, 5x, 10x, who knows, X your business. So anyway, thank you for sharing your perspective on that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, I can confidently tell you, like, I added it up the other day, actually. Someone asked me, I've had a few people ask me, but someone asked me, they were like, do you really think mentorships work? Like, how much have you spent? Like, why can't you just give me your time for free? So I totaled it up on like how much money I had spent just in mentorships, and it was close to 70 grand. I want to say it was like 69,400. And I was like, damn, that's a lot of money. And then I like calculated how much specifically those mentorships had made me, and it was more than 10x.
Wow.
So if that tells you anything, number one, about what mentorships can do if you let them, but number two, why I don't just give anything away for free, that should tell you why. Because nothing was free to me. I'm so happy to answer questions for a few people. I'm happy to give 10, 15 minutes of my time, but I think you really do have to, something my mentor even taught me was you really do have to watch your time. You have to be accountable to it. And then you have to be compensated for it. And so that's made me even more money by being willing to say no to those other opportunities.
Yeah, concur. So, okay, so you've got what sounds to be like a thriving, doing well real estate business. And then on top of that, prior to us coming on, you had mentioned that you're also doing some business consulting, correct?
I do. So I offer business consulting for startups. It's very small just because I don't feel like I have the team or the skill set yet to really push it forward and make it what it could be. And I think back in October when you and I had been introduced and we talked, we were talking about the potential of it. The company's name is Be Well, and primarily what we focus on is helping entrepreneurs and their teams focus on health and wellness aspects in order to grow their businesses. Because I'm a big believer that your business is just a direct reflection of you as a person. And so when you look at people who are physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy, their businesses also tend to be healthy. Rarely do you see someone who is very physically unhealthy have a thriving business. And it's because our business is like our child, right? And so I help those startups understand what they can do on a daily basis, what practices they should have in place, how they can take care of themselves, how they can essentially organize all of the information that is thrown at us, because there's so many gurus out there, helping them actually prioritize what they need to do in order to correlate that to the success of their business. So that's on the smaller scale. I think the next 5 to 10 years, it'll be massive. I haven't stopped it, but primarily right now, the land and the real estate investing is where I have to focus my time. And so we've put Be Well on hold for a little bit.
That's awesome. That's super interesting. I like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's super cool. So I'm going to transition a little bit just to get some insight from you on, like, if there's somebody watching this and they're an aspiring entrepreneur, what would be like your main piece of advice that you would get them if you could go back and mentor your earlier self?
That's so tough because like I had to figure out so much shit on my own. And I wish someone would have just handed me a playbook and I could have like read it, and like had an instruction packet for how to be a successful entrepreneur. But I will say that if you want to be the best person possible and want to have the best business possible, you have to take care of yourself. Your health and nutrition have to be set. You have to exercise. You have to get enough sleep. You have to be mentally clear. You have to actually care about your morals and values. You have to know where to spend your time. You have to know how to be focused. All the things you think that wouldn't matter, that are all personal to you, those absolutely matter. You have to be healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. You have to have all those in place and set up before you even want to start a business. Because I see so many businesses crash and burn, primarily because their owners don't take care of themselves first. Take care of yourself first. Put on your own oxygen mask before you even try to put on the oxygen mask of your team or your business. That's the number one piece of advice I would recommend to anyone who is starting out.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I needed you to tell me that about 5 years ago because I always was putting on everybody else's oxygen mask because I tend to want to solve everybody else's problem and help them. And then I'm like, I'll get to myself later. And so, yeah, to your point, it not only drained me, but, obviously, well, not obviously because you weren't there, but, it had some physical impacts, emotional impacts, and all this other stuff. So I think that's incredibly good insight and advice. So I thank you for sharing that.
Of course. I'm glad that you got your own oxygen mask on.
Yeah. Well, if I'm being completely honest, like there's still times where I stumble, right? Like that's again, it's who I
Oh,
am.
for sure.
Yeah, I just tend to want to. So it's a great reminder. I I also, kind of going back and culminating everything that you've talked about, which I appreciate that we've been able to talk about some of those struggles. But I wanted to ask you, is there any particular thing during this entire journey, from the time we'll talk about the photography all the way up through the car dealership and then the land, and then now you have Be Well. Like what's a significant either trial or like specific obstacle that you went through that right really caused some self-doubt? Like, is it really worth it? And like how did you navigate that?
What a good question. Um, Here's the thing. Everyone's different when it comes to their level of confidence, right? I've never been a confident person, and I tend to, I would say, underplay my confidence or maybe almost thinking I'm not deserving of confidence and it's something I really have to work on to say, no, I've earned this confidence. I know I can do this. But I would say, I mean, it's hard, dude. Anytime I have started something with excitement and with determination, and someone close to me, even if they're not higher up than me, but even if it's family or friends, said, yeah, but like, what makes you think you're qualified? I'm just like, yeah, what makes me think I'm qualified? It just causes me to crumble. But that's a me problem. That has nothing to do with the reality of where that confidence comes from, which is from experience. And so it used to take me so long to build back up from that doubt that would creep in. And now I just say, hey, that doubt is really just a thought. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. If it is true, what do I need to do to strengthen myself, to get that experience, to gain that confidence, and to earn that confidence? And if it's not true, then I don't even need to think about it. But I would say it's been probably a good year, the last time I felt like I couldn't really do something. And now I'm getting to the point where I almost love when those issues come up or when someone thinks I can't do something, because I always prove it wrong. I always prove that falsity wrong. I can do anything I want to do if I feel inspired to do it. I know I'm capable of building a team. I know I'm capable of rising up from the ashes. I've done it so many times. And so I'm just going to keep doing that. And there's always going to be doubt, whether it's from myself, but primarily from others. But on the other side of that, there's always going to be those experiences and that confidence waiting on the other side. So I'm going to lean into that as much as I can.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that as well, because it's tough, especially when you start digging into your own insecurities or things that you've needed to process. And so sharing that is great, and hopefully somebody listening understands. You have to take a moment and realize those situations, and then how do you grow from there? Otherwise, they just stay perpetuated, and then they stay in their circumstances and they don't change, and it's sad, right? It's very sad for me.
Oh, it eats you alive.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think too many people, they look at the positivity from anyone who they look up to, right? And that positivity, I won't say it's fake, but it's very overplayed, and the reality is very underplayed. I don't believe that there's any successful entrepreneur who has successfully built a company or multiple companies and not wanted to quit, or not wanted to just wash their hands or become someone else, or just absolutely crumble. Unfortunately, a lot of that isn't talked about openly, but if you look at some of the biggest, most successful companies, like specifically Steve Jobs, if you read his, I don't think it's an autobiography, but it's like journal entries, essentially. Like, he talks so much about what he experienced, what he went through, his delusions, his struggles, his like anger towards almost not being good enough, and saying, well, we're just going to do it anyways. But he had the utmost confidence at the end. He was so determined to just push forward. even when he got scrutinized by so many people and so many companies. But yeah, every entrepreneur has absolutely been through the weeds. And I think sharing that is crucial, especially for those newer entrepreneurs, newer startups.
That hits home. So that's a great share. Before we wind off here, I wanted to give you an opportunity, if you could you kind of just share any piece of like literature or a podcast or a show or anything that really resonated with you that you would offer to somebody else as far as like, further educating themselves, or an inspiring show or book that's really impacted you?
I mean, there's been a lot, right? There's been so
Give
many.
me one.
But I will say,
give me your top one, like within the past year or two, if you can.
Oh, the past year or two? I think The Go-Giver was probably one of those books that encouraged me to have a abundance-based mindset. Have you ever read that, The Go-Giver?
No, I'm listening.
Oh, I'll send it to you. It's absolutely incredible. It is the best book, but it absolutely teaches you about abundance, about giving as much as you can and not expecting it back, but just believing that it comes back to you. And it's actually like a story. It's not like a Think and Grow Rich type of instructional book. It's an actual story. And I think that was really the good introduction of what I needed, of understanding the difference between scarcity and abundance. So that's one of the first ones I would read. Helps you reduce your selfishness, but also think of yourself first. So yeah, that's number one. And then I would say, I mean, there's so many podcasts and stuff. I can tell you confidently that Gary Vee was one of the top entrepreneurs and one of the first entrepreneurs who helped me realize that there was something bigger than myself. Like, there is me and I'm important, but there's something so much bigger. And he is so good at taking a complex idea and simplifying it so that anyone can understand it. I mean, I still follow him to this day. I cannot wait to meet him and work with him and get to know him. But he's just an incredible entrepreneur. He's so genuine. He does not give a fuck what anyone thinks about him, and he'll say it just like that too.
He does.
But yeah, he's incredible. I would encourage anyone. To follow Gary Vee more, for sure.
That's great, and I am definitely going to get that book. Yeah, I watch a lot of Gary's.
If you text me your address, I'll send it to you. I have so many of them too.
Oh, well, I'm not going to give up a free book.
Right, there we go. And then you'll read the book and you'll understand the concept behind it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I have heard one other person reference it, but it wasn't until you were kind of talking a little bit about it that it kind of, rekindled that. So now I'm interested in that as well. I'm going to give you a chance to kind of tell people how to get in contact with you, but I just want to say thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to come on the show and talk about your story and your situation. I've repeatedly keep telling people that, one of the things why I love doing this is because I just want more people to be inspired and to understand, and that it is possible. And there are, as you just kind of lined out, there are tons of trials along the ways, but they're not insurmountable. The question is, who's cheerleading for you? Who's in your inner circle? And how do you traverse those type of problems? And so by sharing your story, I think it's going to be impactful for other people. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having me. You ask such good questions too, so I really appreciate the conversation.
Oh, thank you. But before we depart though, I also want to give you an opportunity to tell everybody what is the best way for them to reach out with you if they're looking for some guidance and mentorship in business startup, or if they got some land. Like, how do they get a hold of Bobbi Oliver? Give us all your platforms.
Absolutely. So I actually don't have that many platforms. I'm working on building up that marketing myself. But as of right now, if you are on Instagram, it's at Bobbi, Bobby, at Bobbi the Builder 2.0. You can also text me 720-213-8226 or email me bobbi.r.oliver@gmail.com. I try to respond to all text messages, emails, calls, anything that comes through to provide anything that I can. So feel free to reach out.
Bobbi, I have to make you say it again. That is the sweetest Instagram again. Can you say that again? What is it?
It's Bobby the Builder 2.0. Bobby.
I freaking love that.
Can I tell you the story?
Yes, do it.
Thank you.
Do
Can
it.
I tell you the story behind
Send
it?
Send it.
So, Bobby is such a weird name compared to like Brittany or Taylor or Sarah, right? And so I always hated my name growing up. And the show Bob the Builder, like the claymation show, everyone would always make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, it's like Bob the Builder," and I was always like hurt by it because I was such a sensitive kid. So when I got to be an adult, I was like, Bobby the Builder sounds pretty badass.
Yeah.
And then it just stuck.
Yeah.
So now I'm like building townhomes and actually building businesses, and it lined up pretty well.
Oh, I think it's such a great play off of what you just said, the claymation, because there's a huge swath of people that know that. And so when you said Bob the Builder 2.0, it's the first thing that came to my mind. So that's great, man. You should
Thank you.
Talk to your marketing people. You should have a claymation version of Bobby Oliver. That's what you should do, man.
Stop.
Seriously,
That's the best idea.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Oh my God, maybe I have to now. Well, if you happen to see a claymation on Shorts and it goes viral, we know to thank Jamie.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Oh my God, let's do it.
Yeah,
you know anyone who's a claymation artist?
No, but I guarantee that if you put that in one of the groups that we're a part of, that somebody will, right? That's what's awesome about the power of the group.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
why I constantly say, are you in the right rooms, right? You know this. I'm saying this for everybody listening that's unsure, is that you got to be in and around the right people. Proximity is everything. So anyway, thanks for sharing that story. Super cute.
Absolutely, 100%. Of course.
Yeah. So thanks again. If you need to get a hold of Bobby, reach out. She just gave you Bobby the Builder 2.0. Nobody can forget that. And I hope you have a great week, Bobby.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. Have a great rest of your week as well, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.